Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are plunging right into the engine room of strategic execution.
We're talking about financial planning and analysis.
Right, FP&A. For so many organizations, this is the function that makes the difference between, a great strategy presentation and actually making money.
We're basically pulling back the curtain on what separates the real high performers, what the research calls world-class FP&A teams, from everyone else.
And if you're involved in steering your company, you really need to hear this.
Our whole mission here is to synthesize some really serious global research. We're drawing from a big IMA global survey. I think it was over 700 organizations.
Right, and also insights from the FP&A Trends Maturity Model, plus some pretty cutting-edge academic work on the pitfalls of machine learning in finance. It's a great mix.
And the conversation really has to start with this one stark observation, which is that a lot of CFOs feel their current FP&A processes just deliver too little value for the resources they consume.
They've got mountains of data, endless spreadsheets, but the output, it just isn't translating into actionable insight. Not fast enough anyway.
That's the classic challenge. But the promise, what the best companies achieve, is profound.
It's huge. Their FP&A teams are the ones driving the actual execution of the strategy. They guarantee the best resource allocation and, crucially, make sure the organization actually hits its goals.
They move the needle from reactive reporting to proactive guidance.
It's a transformation from, a cost center focused on history?
Exactly. Into a strategic lever for success. The shift is massive.
Okay, so let's unpack that shift. Where do we start? I think we have to start with the most fundamental failure point the research identified.
The connection.
Connecting that beautiful high-level strategic vision to the day-to-day reality of what people are actually doing.
This is the strategic gap. It's so common. Organizations have a strategy. Maybe it's scribbled on a napkin, maybe it's in a 3-inch binder, but they almost always fail when they try to translate that vision into actionable plans.
So it's a planning failure.
It's a planning failure, not a strategy failure.
I think the anecdote from the source material just illustrates this frustration so perfectly. There was a CEO.
Oh yeah, the CEO who had just come from this successful 3-day offsite meeting. They'd identified all these key strategic initiatives, grow in Asia, optimize the supply chain, the usual stuff.
But then what happened?
3 months later, he's reviewing the annual operating plan, the AOP, and he's just stunned. He said, and I'm quoting here, "I couldn't see where our strategy was anywhere in our plan."
Wow.
He said, "I had pages and pages of financial projections, but nothing that connected those strategic initiatives we talked about with what I was looking at."
He felt the whole retreat was just a waste of time.
A waste of time and money, because the strategy just sort of vaporized when it hit the ground.
And that gets us to the first core principle from the survey. The bridge between strategy and finance, it has to be concrete. It can't be abstract.
Absolutely. The best companies, they don't just have a strategy. They mandate that these specific broad initiatives get documented. And then, and this is the key, they get broken down into concrete, actionable projects.
With milestones and dates.
With milestones and dates. If you can't see the project, you can't fund the project. It's that simple.
So if I'm a finance professional listening to this, the big takeaway is that my budget isn't just a set of numbers. It's the ultimate execution document.
That's where strategy lives or dies. You're exactly right.
So it doesn't matter how eloquent the CEO is at the offsite.
Not at all. The real allocation of resources, of money, of people's time, it happens in the budget process. If an initiative, say, entering a new market or some new employee training, if it isn't explicitly funded in the budget, it is not going to happen.
The budget is the choke point for strategy.
It is. And FP&A's role here, it shifts dramatically. You're no longer just collecting departmental wish lists.
You become a facilitator.
Yes. You ensure the operational managers identify the money and the time needed, and then you make sure those resources translate directly into funded line items. You bridge that gap between the big vision and the, expense reality.
This idea of aligning resources, it leads us straight to the core mechanism that makes all this work. It's what makes modern FP&A so dynamic.
Driver-based planning.
Driver-based planning.
What's so fascinating here is that this moves planning away from that static historical data, that dreaded just add 5% to last year's cost.
I think everyone has lived through that.
Right. Instead, it links planning and forecasting directly to the key operational and financial drivers that genuinely impact performance.
It acknowledges something that sounds so obvious, but it gets lost in the spreadsheets all the time.
Which is?
That financial results are simply the product of operational decisions. The P&L and operations are completely intertwined.
Precisely. And the best companies make those connections explicit. For example, if you have a project designed to increase productivity by 5% and it gets delayed by 6 months,
The best companies know exactly what that means.
they know the specific impact on their cost of goods sold, their COGS, and on their operating profits, their EBITDA. They monitor the progress of that operational project because they know how that progress, or lack of it, hits the bottom line.
So to make those models work, you have to understand the levers you can pull versus the ones you can't. The research splits them into two categories.
Right. We call them internal drivers and external drivers. Internal drivers are the things you can control.
Like workforce productivity.
Workforce productivity, operational efficiency, how fast you process invoices. You have agency over these things.
And the external drivers are, well, everything else.
The market forces you can't control. Inflation, exchange rates, new regulations, what your competitors doing with their pricing. You have to track both to build models that are realistic but also flexible.
The Pepsi-Cola International example is such a great illustration of this.
It's a classic. It shows how you can use one driver to fundamentally reshape a business.
So what was the driver?
Productivity. Pepsi identified productivity as a core driver of their global success. But they didn't just write it down. They quantified it with a really aggressive target.
Which was?
A significant increase in sales volume, but with a target of flat cost growth.
That's a huge challenge. That means all your productivity gains have to cover the cost of selling and delivering all that extra product.
Exactly. And to get there, they drove strategic investments in total quality management, continuous improvement. They funded technology, they funded training, and because they tied that productivity driver directly to the capital allocation.
The budget.
The budget. They knew exactly where to invest,
Yeah.
and the result was they hit their cost targets and the investors saw the stock value double.
That's the power of it. Identify the mechanism, quantify it, fund it. But that level of strategic guidance, it requires a completely different kind of FP&A professional.
And this is where we hit a bit of a snag. The 2023 survey results are really striking. We found that only 34% of FP&A effort is actually directed toward high-value activities.
Things like generating insights, driving outcomes.
Right.
So that means almost 2/3 of the effort is spent somewhere else.
And the data shows a full 45% is still spent on low-value tasks: data collection, consolidation, validation.
But why? I mean, haven't we been talking about data lakes and a single source of truth for, what, a decade now? What's the real blocker?
The blocker is often legacy systems. It's the simple fact that data exists in silos: finance data, sales data, HR data. They just don't talk to each other automatically.
People are still just stitching together spreadsheets?
They're spending enormous amounts of time doing it manually because the systems aren't integrated.
Which has to change. And that change defines the new identity of the FP&A professional. They're evolving from just being a data provider.
Into a management co-pilot. They're there to guide the business toward profit growth and operational excellence.
That's a huge cultural shift. And it requires a specific skill set.
It does. It requires FP&A leaders to master influencing without formal authority. They can't just mandate change. They have to rely on their expertise, their communication skills, their relationships. It's lateral leadership.
Especially when you're dealing with sales, operations, IT, all these different functions.
Exactly. And that complexity, it mandates a multidisciplined team. The research breaks it down into 5 pivotal roles.
And it's a blend of technical and interpersonal skills.
Right. You still need the technical experts. You got your traditional analysts for budgeting and support. But now you absolutely need a data scientist.
Someone who can bridge finance and data science, who understands AI and machine learning.
And you need an architect. Someone who's the bridge to IT, who designs the data flow and the system architecture.
Okay, but the ones that really jump out at me are storyteller and influencer. I have to say, 10 years ago, if you mentioned storyteller in a finance meeting,
They'd have lashed you out of the room.
they would have handed you a corporate communications brochure or something.
But these are the critical interpersonal roles now. The storyteller is essential. They're responsible for, and I love this phrase, the metamorphosis from reporting to the art of storytelling with data.
So they take the complex information and turn it into a compelling, actionable narrative that leadership can actually grasp.
They turn tables and charts into an actual decision.
And the influencer.
The influencer takes that story and runs with it. This person uses their expertise, their network, to guide senior executives often navigating really complex political environments where priorities are competing.
That blend of skills is what defines a mature FP&A function today.
It is. And underpinning all of it, of course, is technology. It's the
Hmm.
powerhouse behind this whole transformation. It's what enables what we call XP&A.
Extended planning and analysis.
Right. It means the planning cycle isn't just finance talking to finance anymore. It extends across the whole enterprise. Financial planning, operational planning, workforce planning, sales planning, they're all integrated.
So let's talk about the tech that makes that possible. First, you have to solve that 45% data validation problem.
You do. Success absolutely requires a single source of truth, usually a centralized data lake. It's necessary for data integrity.
So finance, sales, and operations are all looking at the same numbers.
And you eliminate all that time wasted arguing over whose spreadsheet is right.
Okay, so you've got clean data. Now you need the framework to use it.
That's where integrated platforms come in. They allow all your different models, strategic, financial, operational, to function as one unified model. This lets you run simulations quickly. It supports agile decision making.
And finally, you have to kill those low-value tasks.
With automation, robotic process automation, or RPA, streamlines all those manual processes. For example, a new purchase order comes in. The system can automatically update material pricing in your forecast.
Or labor costs can flow in directly from the HR system.
Instantly and accurately. No more manual reconciliation.
This whole technological foundation is what makes agility possible. And the core mechanism for that is the rolling forecast.
Rolling forecasts are just fundamentally different from old school fixed budgets.
How so?
Well, they're continuous. They don't just reset every calendar year. They focus on the core value drivers, not thousands of tiny line items. And they're updated regularly, maybe quarterly or even monthly.
It allows for constant course correction.
Exactly. And the impact is tangible. The data shows almost half of rolling forecasts are accurate to within plus or minus 5%.
And the ultimate agility test was during the COVID crisis. The research mentions Christiana Care.
A great example. They pivoted their entire planning process to month-to-month forecasting in just 4 days.
4 days. That's incredible.
That speed is just impossible without integrated systems and a rolling forecast methodology already in place.
And for businesses with really volatile models like SaaS companies.
Oh, for them, it's non-negotiable. The SaaS business is driven by a few key metrics: MRR, ARR, LTV, AX, churn rate.
All things that can change really fast.
So FP&A has to manage flexible budgets built around multiple revenue scenarios. Optimistic, realistic, pessimistic, so they can adapt the second those drivers change course.
Okay, so we've got the framework, the team, and the tech. Now, I want to pivot to a really crucial and kind of complex warning that comes out of the cutting-edge research, especially with everyone rushing to embrace AI and machine learning.
This is so critical. When you're implementing these ML models, you have to understand the fundamental difference between prediction and intervention.
Or, to put it another way, between forecasting and planning.
Exactly. Machine learning is brilliant at prediction, at forecasting. It can tell you, with amazing accuracy, what's likely to happen next quarter.
But planning requires something different.
It requires estimating the causal effect of an intervention. The question isn't, what will sales be? It's, if I spend $1 million on this promotion, will it actually cause sales to increase by $5 million?
Or was that sales increase going to happen anyway?
Precisely. And this is where a naive application of ML falls into a very dangerous trap. It's called omitted variable bias.
The ice cream vendor analogy from the research explains this so well.
It does. It's simple. So an ML model might find a strong correlation. When the vendor runs a big promotion or when hotel room prices nearby are high, they also see high ice cream sales.
And model would successfully predict that those things move together.
Right. But the real cause, the omitted variable, is just the weather. It's a hot, sunny day. That's what causes high hotel occupancy, high prices, and high ice cream sales.
So if the FP&A team looks at that naive ML output and says, great, let's pour more money into promotions, they're completely misreading the situation.
They're wasting massive resources because they misidentified the true cause.
And then the simulation study and the research showed just how bad this can be.
It's staggering. The naive approach, even using a strong predictive tool like lasso regression, incorrectly assumed that the promotional activity had a causal effect on sales.
How often?
A staggering 46% of the time. You would be systematically wrong almost half the time. That leads to disastrous resource allocation.
So you're essentially flying blind nearly 50% of the time.
Yeah.
What's the solution then? How can FP&A get reliable causal inference for planning, not just a prediction for forecasting?
The solution is a technique called double machine learning,
BML.
DML. It's basically a smart filter. It overcomes that omitted variable bias by making the estimation of the causal effect, the actual lift from your intervention, immune to the noise in the prediction model.
So it insulates the two things. It uses one ML model to predict sales and a separate one to measure only the specific lift from your intervention. Is that right?
That's a great way to put it. It delivers a statistically reliable estimate of the actual impact of that promotional spend. It gives FP&A the confidence that their resource allocation is going to be effective.
It ensures whether to focus on the promotion budget or just on optimizing your response to market demand.
That's right.
Okay, let's bring this all together. We've covered three massive levers for FP&A excellence today.
First, connecting strategy to action.
Through documented projects and dynamic driver-based planning. Second, building those multi-skilled, agile teams. You need your storytellers and influencers as much as your data scientists.
And third, leveraging technology, that single source of truth, integrated platforms, automation, but with a critical awareness of ML's inherent bias when you're dealing with causality versus just prediction.
We've seen that maturity means moving away from just processing data to actively guiding strategic decisions.
And we've established that FP&A is no longer a historical accounting function. It's the management co-pilot driving the execution of strategy.
So my final provocative thought for you to consider as you digest all this, it comes from looking at where future investments should go. We saw that even superior predictive tools only get marginal precision from acquiring more data.
Right. Data often shows decreasing returns to scale. The marginal value of the 10th terabyte is usually much, much smaller than the first.
So if just getting more and more data isn't providing huge leaps in precision for even the best models, what other forms of investment might give you a much greater, more immediate return on your FP&A maturity?
Good question.
Maybe it's investing in process design or the right system architecture, or crucially, developing those storyteller and influencer skills on your team. So think about this. What is the real scarcity you should be addressing in your organization? Is it data quantity, or is it organizational insight and influence?
A truly strategic question to end on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.